Did the Philadelphia Phillies just sacrifice their October dreams on the altar of budget spreadsheets? Did they really trade away a proven high-leverage weapon to save a few $1,000,000 while their championship window burns bright and finite? This isn't roster optimization, folks. This is financial constraint masquerading as baseball strategy, and it might cost this franchise everything when the games actually matter. Matt Strahm is heading to Kansas City, not to some irrelevant team in a distant league where we could wish him well and move on. He's gone, shipped out for Jonathan Bolin, and let's be brutally honest here, payroll relief. The kind of move that looks brilliant in an accounting department, but catastrophic in a playoff bullpen when you're one arm short of advancing to the World Series. This is December 24th, 2025, and while the front office celebrates their newfound financial flexibility, Phillies fans are left staring at a bullpen that just got demonstrably weaker at the exact moment when this team should be adding pieces, not subtracting them. This isn't just a transaction. It's a referendum on organizational priorities, a window into whether the Phillies are truly committed to winning a championship or merely managing a budget while pretending to compete. The timing makes it even more infuriating. Just days ago, the Phillies signed Brad Keller to a 2-year, $22 million deal that generated genuine optimism about their commitment to pitching depth. Finally, we thought they're serious about building a complete roster. Then they turn around and gut their bullpen to clear salary space, creating a contradiction so jarring it feels like two different front offices operating in parallel universes. Let's establish exactly what Philadelphia sacrificed in this trade, because the narrative that this was some kind of equal swap or reasonable roster adjustment is insulting to anyone who actually watched Matt Strahm pitch. This wasn't organizational depth being shuffled. This wasn't a redundant piece being moved for value. This was a genuine weapon, high-leverage arm who could attack hitters from both sides, provide length when starters faltered, and dominate in October when every pitch carries championship weight. Strahm's versatility was his superpower. In an era where bullpen management has become increasingly specialized, where managers deploy specific arms for specific matchups in specific innings, Strahm was the Swiss Army knife that made everything else work. Need someone to face a dangerous left-handed hitter in the 7th inning? Strahm. Need multiple innings to bridge from a struggling starter to your closer? Strahm. Need someone to protect a 1-run lead in the 8th inning of a playoff game? Strahm. That kind of flexibility is exactly what separates elite bullpens from merely good ones. It's what allows managers to navigate the chess match of modern baseball, to respond to unexpected situations, to deploy their best weapons when the game demands it rather than being constrained by rigid roles and matchup limitations. The Phillies just traded that flexibility away for financial breathing room and a replacement-level arm. His ability to neutralize both left-handed and right-handed hitters made him invaluable in matchup-heavy playoff baseball. While many lefty relievers struggle against right-handed batters, forcing managers to use them only in specific situations, Strahm could handle anyone. His repertoire, a devastating changeup, a hard cutter, a fastball with excellent movement, played against all hitter types. He wasn't just a LOGY left-handed one-out guy. He was a complete pitcher who happened to throw left-handed. The playoff implications are staggering. Think about October baseball, where every at-bat matters, where one mistake can end your season, where having the right matchup at the right moment can be the difference between advancing and going home. The Phillies just made themselves significantly more vulnerable in those situations. They've lost the ability to deploy a proven left-handed weapon in high-leverage spots without worrying about platoon disadvantages or limited effectiveness. Now, let's talk about what the Phillies received in return, because the front office will undoubtedly spin this as a strategic move that improves the roster in different ways. Jonathan Bolin isn't a bad pitcher. Let's establish that up front. His 3.86 ERA and 3.97 FIP across 44.1 innings for Kansas City last season represents solid middle relief production. He struck out 46 batters against 17 walks, demonstrating decent command and stuff. He gives Philadelphia right-handed relief depth they've genuinely needed. But let's not pretend this is an equal swap or even a reasonable facsimile of one. Strahm is the superior pitcher by every meaningful metric. More proven, more versatile, more reliable in high-leverage situations, more valuable in playoff baseball. Bullpen is organizational depth, the kind of arm every team needs but nobody fears when he enters a crucial game with the season on the line. The statistical comparison isn't even close. While Bullpen's numbers are respectable, they were accumulated in lower leverage situations for a Kansas City team that wasn't competing for championships. Strahm's numbers were earned in the pressure cooker of Philadelphia's playoff chase, in high-leverage spots against elite competition, in situations where failure meant immediate consequences. The context matters enormously, and the context says Strahm is operating on a completely different level. Bullpen provides right-handed depth, which the Phillies needed. That's true, but they didn't need to trade their best left-handed reliever to acquire it. They could have signed a right-handed reliever in free agency. They could have promoted from within. They could have made a different trade that didn't gut their bullpen versatility. Instead, they chose the path that saved money while making the roster objectively worse. The financial component is the real return here, and that's what makes this trade so damning. The Phillies didn't execute this move because they believed Bullpen was better than Strahm or because they had some brilliant roster construction insight. They made this trade because they needed payroll relief, because they're operating near the luxury tax threshold with limited flexibility, because financial constraints force their hand. Let's examine the financial reasoning behind this move, because understanding it is crucial to grasping why it's so fundamentally flawed. The Phillies are repeat luxury taxpayers facing escalating penalties on every additional dollar spent. They've got expensive veterans like Nick Castellanos potentially being released while still owed $20 million. They need to re-sign JT Realmuto. They're trying to balance competitive urgency with fiscal responsibility, and something had to give. Strahm became the sacrifice on the altar of budget management. His salary, while not exorbitant, represented money they could redirect elsewhere or simply save to avoid harsher tax penalties. From a pure accounting perspective, trading him makes sense. From a baseball perspective, from a championship pursuit perspective, it's organizational malpractice. Here's the fundamental problem with that calculus: championship windows don't stay open indefinitely. The Phillies have an elite core right now. Bryce Harper is in his prime, producing MVP-caliber seasons and leading this franchise. Tree Turner is locked up long-term, providing elite production at a premium position. Zack Wheeler, when healthy, is a Cy Young candidate who can dominate any lineup in baseball. Aaron Nola provides steady veteran excellence, the kind of reliable starter every championship team needs. They've made deep playoff runs recently. They've been to the World Series. They've won consecutive division titles. They're not a team building toward contention. They're a team that is contending right now, in this moment. This is when organizations should be adding pieces, maximizing every competitive advantage, going all in on championship pursuit. Instead, they're subtracting. They're trading proven relievers for salary relief and replacement-level returns. They're operating with one hand tied behind their back by self-imposed financial constraints that other championship-caliber organizations simply ignore when the window is this wide open. Let's play a thought experiment. Imagine the Los Angeles Dodgers in this situation. They've got a proven left-handed reliever who can dominate in high-leverage playoff situations. They're near the luxury tax threshold. They could trade him for payroll relief and a replacement-level arm. Do they make that trade? Absolutely not. Never. Not in a million years. The Dodgers, when they're in championship windows, find ways to add depth, not subtract it. They go over the luxury tax. They pay the penalties. They prioritize winning over budget management because they understand that championships are rare and precious, that windows close unexpectedly, that you can't get those opportunities back once they're gone. The New York Yankees don't make this trade. The Houston Astros don't make this trade. Teams that prioritize winning above all else find ways to keep their best players and add more. They don't trim depth to balance budgets when they're one or two pieces away from a championship. The Phillies just reveal their priorities, and it's not championship or bust. It's championship if we can't afford it, which is a fundamentally different philosophy that rarely produces rings. You can't half commit to winning. You can't operate with budget constraints as your primary decision-making framework when you're this close to the ultimate goal. Let's talk about what the Phillies bullpen looks like now, post-Strahm, because the construction has become significantly thinner and less versatile. They've still got their closer and a few solid arms, that's true. But the depth that made them genuinely dangerous, the flexibility that allowed Rob Thompson to navigate any situation, has been compromised. The ability to deploy multiple high-quality left-handed options depending on matchups is gone. Strahm was the primary left-handed weapon, the arm you could trust in any situation against any hitter. Now that's been replaced by, what exactly? Bullpen helps fill the right-handed void, but at the cost of left-handed versatility and proven October performance. What happens when injuries inevitably ravage the bullpen during the grueling summer months? Baseball seasons are marathons, not sprints. Arms break down. Pitchers hit the injured list. Depth gets tested constantly. The Phillies just made themselves more vulnerable to those inevitable challenges by trading away a proven, durable arm who could absorb high-leverage innings. What happens when September arrives and the Phillies need multiple high-leverage arms to navigate tight divisional races? What happens when every game matters, when the margin for error disappears, when you need your best weapons available every single night? The depth they just traded away is exactly what teams need in those situations. What happens when October comes and they're one reliable lefty short in a crucial playoff series against a lineup loaded with dangerous left-handed hitters? Imagine facing the Dodgers or Padres in the playoffs, teams with multiple elite left-handed bats, and not having Strahm available to neutralize them. That's not a hypothetical nightmare. It's a realistic scenario that could define their entire season. The timing and sequencing of these moves reveals either organizational confusion or reactive decision-making, neither of which inspires confidence. If payroll flexibility was so desperately critical that trading Strahm became necessary, why sign Brad Keller to a multi-year, $22 million deal just days before making this move? The logical sequence would be trade Strahm first, create the financial flexibility, then deploy that freed-up space strategically across multiple needs. Instead, they signed Keller, creating financial pressure, then traded Strahm to relieve that pressure. It feels backwards, reactive rather than proactive, creating the impression of an organization scrambling to balance competing priorities rather than executing a coherent, well-planned roster construction strategy. This isn't how championship front offices operate. Elite organizations plan multiple moves in advance, understanding how each transaction affects the next, creating a comprehensive strategy rather than reacting to each new financial constraint as it emerges. The Phillies look like they're making it up as they go, which is terrifying for a team with championship aspirations. The broader context makes this even more frustrating and reveals a fundamental disconnect in organizational priorities. The Phillies just committed $150 million over 5 years to Kyle Schwarber, a player in his mid-30s whose defensive limitations and strikeout tendencies create significant roster construction challenges. They're potentially paying Nick Castellanos $20 million to play elsewhere or not play at all, money that's completely wasted regardless of what he does. They've got significant money tied up in players who might not contribute meaningfully to championship pursuit. Yet, when it comes to a proven, versatile high-leverage reliever who actually helps them win games in October, suddenly budget constraints become insurmountable obstacles. The resource allocation feels backwards, the priorities misaligned with championship ambition. Why is it acceptable to pay Castellanos $20 million to potentially not contribute, but unacceptable to keep Strahm at his salary to definitely contribute in high-leverage situations? Why can they commit 9 figures to aging position players, but not maintain bullpen depth? The answers to these questions reveal an organization that's confused about how to build championship rosters. Dave Dombrowski has built his reputation on aggressive roster construction and championship-focused decision-making. He's won World Series by going all-in when windows open, by prioritizing talent over budget concerns, by making the moves that scared competitors make when they're serious about winning. He's the executive you hire when you want championships, not when you want fiscal responsibility. This trade feels like the opposite of that philosophy. It feels like organizational constraint overriding baseball judgment, like financial considerations trumping competitive advantage. It feels like Dombrowski being handcuffed by ownership directives rather than being empowered to build the best possible roster. If this trade was Dombrowski's decision, made freely without financial pressure from ownership, then it represents a significant departure from his established track record. If this trade was forced by ownership budget constraints, then it reveals a fundamental disconnect between the front office's competitive vision and ownership's financial priorities. Either way, it's a bad look for an organization that's supposed to be all in on winning championships. The 2026 season will ultimately judge this decision, and the stakes couldn't be higher. If the Phillies win the World Series despite trading Strahm, if Bullpen exceeds expectations and fills the void seamlessly, if the financial flexibility gained enables other moves that prove more valuable, then this trade will look defensible in hindsight. But if they fall short, if the bullpen becomes a weakness that costs them games, if they're one reliable arm short when it matters most, if they lose a crucial playoff series because they couldn't navigate a tough matchup situation, then this trade will stand as evidence of an organization that prioritized budget management over championship pursuit at the worst possible moment. What happens if Matt Strahm is dominating for Kansas City in October while Philadelphia is watching from home, wondering what might have been if they'd kept their depth intact? What happens if the Phillies fall one game short in the playoffs because their bullpen couldn't hold a lead? Those questions will haunt this organization if this trade backfires, and the probability of that happening just increased significantly. The margins between winning it all and going home disappointed are razor thin in modern baseball. Every advantage matters. Every piece of depth counts. Every high-leverage arm becomes crucial when the games carry championship weight. The Phillies just made those margins even narrower to save money they're already spending elsewhere. Should the Phillies have kept Strahm and absorbed the payroll hit? Absolutely, without question, unequivocally yes. Should they be prioritizing competitive advantage over financial flexibility when their window is this wide open? Every championship team in baseball history would answer that question the same way. Will this trade come back to haunt them when they're one arm short in a crucial playoff series? We'll find out in October, and the answer might be devastatingly painful. Championship windows are finite, precious, and unpredictable. You can't get them back once they close. The Phillies just chose budget management over maximizing their championship odds, and that's a decision that could define this era of Philadelphia baseball. What's your take on this move? Does trading Matt Strahm for salary relief make any sense whatsoever given the Phillies' championship window and competitive positioning? Is this bullpen still good enough to dominate in October, or did Philadelphia just create a critical vulnerability that better-constructed teams will ruthlessly exploit when the games carry championship weight? Drop your unfiltered thoughts in the comments below, because this decision demands a response from everyone who cares about this franchise. And if you want to track every move, every decision, every consequence of this trade as the season unfolds, join this community right now. Because when October arrives and we're counting the cost of financial flexibility, we'll be here together, analyzing what went wrong and demanding better from an organization that should know better.